So welcome to our April town hall meeting. It is our first evening town hall meeting. We're hoping to switch them up every other month, maybe do one in the evening and then the next month do the lunchtime one, hoping to make it available to more people. This evening's town hall, you'll meet the team. We'll talk to you about a mission moment. That's why we do what we do. We'll give you the upcoming town hall schedule. It is Volunteer Recognition Month, and so we want to recognize that. And then we'll get started with our session with Chris Bennett, our volunteer pilot. So this is our mission moment. We like to tell you sort of heartwarming, touching stories about missions. You are looking at Cammie there and her pilot, Sean Bishop. Cammie was flying back home from Phoenix to Colorado, and midway through the flight, the first leg, the pilot received a message from the second leg pilot that he was having mechanical issues and he was not going to be able to fly. So the second pilot said, well, we can turn around or I can just fly you all the way to Westcliff. He said, we set out to fly today, so let's fly. Cammie said, I was so relieved to hear him say that. I was just 3.5 days post-op from major brain surgery. So had we turned around, it would have been very challenging for me to find new lodging and transportation.
Yeah.
I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for Sean's generosity and for him going above and beyond. Sean was also one of my pilots the first time I flew with Angel Flight West. There are some people who truly make the world a better place, and Sean is one of them. That's what it's like to fly a mission, folks. So if you haven't done so, you can have an event like that one, hopefully not having to take over somebody else's mission, but having somebody, the gratitude, really make you feel good about what you're doing. Upcoming town halls. The next one is Tuesday, May 28th at 12:30. It'll be another lunchtime one. We're going to talk to you at that one or about passenger vetting, how the Angel Flight mission operations team vets the passengers. How do we determine that they are suitable for flying Angel flights, that they have a need, that they're able to get in and out of a small aircraft, that they know about baggage, all of those things. So tune in on May 28th to hear about that. And Alejandro is going to talk to you about Volunteer Appreciation Month.
Yeah, thank you all for joining today in the spirit of this Volunteer Appreciation Month. We just wanted to show some of the facts and figures about truly the impact that every flight makes, and not just the flight, but your time and everything that's donated in the process. So this is what we've accomplished so far this year. There's been 538 missions flown by volunteers with a total of over 1,500 donated flight hours, more than $1 million in in-kind donations via those flights and drives, 150 Earth Angel trips, and almost 5,000 miles driven by Earth Angels themselves as well. This in total has impacted over 600 unique passengers and companions this year. So it's truly remarkable, and we thank you all and just can't say enough how much we appreciate everything that you do.
At this time, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker tonight, AFW volunteer Chris Bennett. I'll let him tell you anything he wants to about himself, except for I will say that Chris has flown a record 617 missions since he started flying for us in 2014. So woohoo to Chris.
All right, cool. So welcome. I hope this will be informative for you and encouraging. So you can read, so I won't repeat any of the stuff you can see there, other than say I fly a little Diamond, and I just recently moved from Reed Hillview to San Jose. I was fortunate enough to be in a situation where I could stop working and took up flying. I'd always wanted to do it, and I intended to go back to work, but fortunately I was in a situation where I just really love flying, and actually at this point I do a lot of Angel flights. I included my email there if you have questions that you think of later, or if you, whatever, just feel free to ping me. That's sort of my life revolves around, I'm of the age that it revolves around email. And then I just included a video, a link to a video. It's a short video that is with Eileen, who is in this photo. Eileen is one of my early passengers, and I've flown the most with Eileen. And it's a really cute video. It was, I don't know if Sherry organized or who was organized it, but it's really well done. I think it's really short. It's fun. So I would encourage that. So I'm going to talk about two passengers. For me, the thing that really drives me and motivates me is building personal relationships with people. So I go out of my way to build long-term relationships, and I love flying with people over years. And this is one really great example. This is Catherine Best. Go to the next photo. So she's in Reading. She has that on the left there. That's when she was, I think, 2. That's the first time she was when I first started in 2014. So she was really little, and she has a congenital kidney issue, and so she needs to go down to Stanford. I think it's twice a year. It varies, but I think it's around twice a year or so. And that's her with her mom. That's a year or two later. That's at Reading Airport. Next, and she's getting a little older. Now she's sitting up front. I didn't get a picture of this, but she's doing the controls, or at least she thinks she's doing the controls. She's having a lot of fun. And then she is another couple of years later. That's her with Amber, her mom, again. And then that was 3 or 4 years ago. So she's grown up. She's now, I think as of today, she's a teenager now, I think. I'm actually flying them again in a couple of weeks. So it's just been delightful. They're a great family. It's a lot of fun, and it's been just such a delight to be able to see her progression and be a part of her life and helping her get good care, which she was not able to get in Reading. So it's just been a blessing. So it's just been really, really fun to be able to be involved in her life. The other passenger I wanted to talk about, this is a young lady who has really changed my life. Tiffany is she's no longer with us, but she's a remarkable young lady. She would really like this photo. All the rest of the photos I'm going to show you, she would not like, but this one I think she would like. So she's cystic fibrosis patient. When this photo was taken, this was pretty early after I started flying with her. She had just had her second lung transplant. So if you're not familiar with cystic fibrosis, it's a pretty awful disease that thankfully there are new drugs that are helping lots and lots of people avoid the surgeries. But people who have cystic fibrosis and have the surgeries, they don't die of cystic fibrosis. They die because their body eventually can no longer accept organ transplants. So anyway, she had just come out of her second full lung transplant, and was back in a situation where she was able to fly again. This is actually a few months after we started flying together in Reading. Next. Early on, this is real early. I think this is like the first, maybe the first, maybe the second flight. This is Tiffany with her mom, Shelly, who I just emailed again today. Was able to take her down for a visit. Next. And then this is her father. So Shelly, her mom, is a teacher's aide. John runs his own gardening business, a solo practitioner of a gardening business. These are normal people, not well heeled. And the medical bills, even though they have insurance, the associated stuff the non-medical stuff associated with it, transportation, hotels.
There's 172 all the way up to like a Boeing 737. Granted, those are for the cadets. I'm sure.
There we go. That's right. Anyway, so these are really normal people, and there's no way that, before Tiffany got involved in Angel Flight, it was just an overwhelming burden on her family to travel down from Reading down to the Bay Area, which was where she got her transplant done and back. And it was just really a major, major toll on their family. So anyway, so this is John. I've really got to know John and Shelly both. It's really been delightful. Next. So here we go. So one of the things that I try to do, or have tried to do over the years, is when it works out, I try to take people fun places. And so Tiffany had never been to Half Moon Bay. She'd never had gelato. And so we did Bay Tour and then landed at Half Moon Bay, and we had we used our scooter. I have some little large wheel razor scooters, and we scootered around and went out and got some ice cream or gelato together, which she hadn't done. And this is a really delightful time we had together. I have really happy memories of this day. On the left, I included this photo because this, if you do this long, this is what you're going to see a lot with your passengers, is they're totally gassed by the time they get done with treatment and on their way home. And so if you catch them on the way in, they're usually relatively energetic and talkative and that kind of thing. But if you catch them on the way home, you're often going to find them in a situation where they just are totally out of it, and that's fine. The whole purpose of this is to relieve the burden, as I hope you know, is to relieve the burden on these people who are facing often really difficult circumstances and make it easier for them. So, all right, and then next. Sadly, Tiffany wasn't able to get a third transplant. It's unclear. It's super high risk. There's only 2 facilities in the United States that support a third transplant. The odds are pretty bad, even doing that. And then it would have been on the East Coast, and she wasn't able to do that. So this is Tiffany. On the left is Jackie Bailey, who was an Earth Angel numerous times for Tiffany. In the top right is Peter Lermoth, who I happened to work with previously, who is another pilot who flew Tiffany a fair amount. And we were able to go up. I flew Jackie and Peter up, and we visited the family about, I think it was about 3 weeks before Tiffany died. And then a few months later, in the lower right, we had or her family put on the memorial service, the celebration of life, which was a delightful event. So this is a different, Catherine, it's a real success story. What not to like about that? You can see this young girl go from, treatment that's successful, as far as I can tell, living a very normal life. Tiffany, the thing that really has stuck with me about her is she's just a fighter, just a total fighter. She was hanging on, and it was really difficult to be involved with her and other patients, and come home and think you have problems. This is a young lady that's facing certain death, and it's coming soon. And so she really lived vivaciously and grabbed every moment she could. Did all sorts of activities with her family over on the coast and all that kind of thing. So just a really, I told Shelley today, it's just such a blessing to be able to be involved with her family. So those are, to me, it's meaningful, super meaningful, is building these relationships. Sometimes they have happy endings, sometimes they don't. But it's a great privilege to be able to help these people in distress. Next. This is, I have a poster of this in my hangar. This is us at Half Moon Bay together. Next. Okay, here's my 1-page tips. There's probably lots and lots of stuff we could talk about. If you're facing getting started with angel flight, I've talked to a number of pilots. It's sort of daunting. It's like, oh, what do you do? It's all mysterious. It actually turns out it's pretty straightforward. But my recommendations would be, when you get started, I would work with the volunteers, the FW volunteers, and try and identify a passenger who has done this before, so they can help coach you through the process, like sort of what it's supposed to look like. That will reduce the risk that you get in a situation where neither one of you knows what's going on. I would also encourage you to pick a relatively short flight. For me, the sweet spot for me is about an hour and a half, which in my airplane is sort of Reading-ish to, Santa Barbara or a little past kind of thing. And I would pick something that has good weather. So you want to minimize the distractions that you have when you're still trying to figure out what's going on with angel flight. And you could do, hard IFR or whatever, but I would recommend not doing that out of the outset. You want to get the whole routine of the angel flight stuff going, and so you know what to expect, and get that all under your belt before you try and tackle that. And complicated flight situations. The second major bullet, I've had to cancel a bunch just in the last 2 weeks. Eileen, who I hope is on this call, I think she is, and I hope she'll be available for questions. I had to cancel with her twice in the last 2 weeks because the weather was so crappy on each Friday. Last week it was ice at 3,000 feet. Like, well, that's a non-starter. We're not going anywhere with that. But if you're confronting usually for weather situation, if you're looking at a weather situation and you're like, I don't know, I might work, but it could, maybe not. If you don't have a really solid plan B, then the correct answer is cancel. And 100% of the time when I've canceled, and not even before I was pretty experienced at this, the response from the Angel Flight West team is great. Thanks for letting us know. We'll figure it out. This is not a life flight. We are not doing stuff to help, people. We don't have a nurse on board. This is not life-threatening. This is helping people from a logistics standpoint. So I actually would like to find a better word than mission, because I think that has some connotations that are not healthy. But if you have any doubts at all about whether or not you're going to be able to make this work, just cancel. If you can do it early enough, then maybe somebody with a turboprop can get it done. I've had Tom McGrath save my butt a couple times. But so there are other ways to solve the problem. The third major point is keep your passengers up to date on what's going on. I usually try and give people typically I'll give them sort of a heads up about 4 or 5 days in advance about what I think the weather looks like. It's either looking good or not. And then I use that as an opportunity to double check that they have a plan B. It's like, if the weather doesn't work out, what's your backup plan? That also is an opportunity to double check that the weight and balance is accurate, because sometimes it's not. And you want to make sure that's, and I love my airplane. High useful load, not part of its portfolio. So it's really important to me to have, a weight come in and be relatively accurate. The other thing that I found is really helpful, if you can get to the point where you're familiar enough with either the AWC charts on turbulence in particular, or if you're familiar with how SQT works and can begin to get a read for when you're likely to encounter turbulence or not. If you can get good at that, your passengers think you're like demigod, like amazing capability, when really all you're doing is you're learning how to read, a SQT chart, which isn't actually that difficult. So, but if you can set expectations, say, hey, it was kind of bumpy on the way down, but once we get back up to 5,000 feet, it's going to smooth out. That really helps. Otherwise, people don't know. They just don't know what is going on with a small airplane. And if you can set those and keep people involved in that, communicate, I find that really helpful. And the last thing I just want to reiterate, and this, unfortunately, I've seen some of this when I've flown some people. It seems to me that some of the people are flying, and I think it's terrific that I hope you do. I hope you participate in this. But it's important to keep in mind that the purpose of this is to help their lives be easier. And there have been situations where somebody has obviously worked it out so that it's easier for the pilot. So they, for example, pick them up on their car and then spend 40 minutes driving in traffic down to the airplane to then take a 30-minute flight. And that's sort of suboptimal from my perspective. So I'm happy to, and now I'm based in the South Bay, but I routinely, I with very few exceptions, only if there's a weather issue, would I not pick them up at, say, Palo Alto. So that's something I would encourage you to seriously consider. The whole purpose of this is to help these people and make it as convenient as possible for them. And hopefully you can buy into that. Okay, so with that, we'll switch over to questions. How do we do here? Pretty quick, I think. I hope.
Well, thank you for that, Chris. Yeah, we're going to open it up to questions. You can ask Chris questions about his missions. Also, if you have some questions about anything about, flying from a new person perspective. And then additionally, we have some staff people here that might be able to answer some questions for you about getting started.
Right. And if I'm still on, so Eileen is here. Eileen Ambrosini. She's my most, I give her frequent flyer miles. So I've flown with her a lot. And so if you have any questions, so what's it like from a passenger perspective, I wanted to make, so if somebody could unmic her, she can answer the questions as well.
We will. Eileen, would you like to say a couple words too about your Angel flights?
I'd love to, if you can hear me.
We can.
Oh, excellent. I have no idea where my face is, but I apologize. It took a while for me to figure out how this thing works. We have a fairly adversarial relationship. But
Eileen is not a techie.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm going for treatments for. Just having flown for the amount of time I have, I've been able to have all kinds of experiences with many, many pilots. Now I'm lucky enough to be able to fly quite often with Chris. And I have yet to meet any pilot who is not so friendly and opening. And I just need to tell everyone who's thinking about becoming a pilot for Angel Flight is you change people's lives. And there's no thank you that's large enough and big enough to say to you. You've changed my life, I know. And I speak for, I'm sure, every other passenger who has flown with an Angel Flight pilot. And if you do have any specific questions from passengers or patients' perspective, I would be more than happy to address them.
Great.
Thanks, Eileen. And by the way, a quick comment on that. Eileen said you change people's lives, which I've been around a long time, as many of you know, and that can't be more true. But one of the things I want to say about that is even in the case of somebody like Tiffany, who passed away and didn't win her, battle against her disease, Chris and others changed her life and made it possible for her to get the treatment that she needed, that she may not otherwise have been able to do. So we would love it if all of our passengers always beat whatever it is that they were trying to fight against. Just not going to happen. But it does make a difference. It gives them the opportunity. It gives them more hours at home with their family. In some cases, that can be absolutely precious extra time at home. So please know that even in a case like Tiffany, it's a huge difference in people's lives. So with that, we're going to open it up for questions. You can just sort of literally raise your hand if you have your camera on. If you don't have your camera on and you raise your hand, we can't see you. There's a little icon down at the bottom where you can raise your hand if you know where that is, or you can drop something in the chat and we will look at those questions. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
So this isn't a question, but I'll just say this. It's something else on my mind. It just occurred to me. I've had the privilege of being able to fly a lot. I mean, I'm able to do it both financially and time-wise. But and Sherry will testify this is true. One of the things that I think that Angel Flight West needs the most is more pilots who fly relatively few missions. I think that, I had a situation last year. My parents got ill. My deaf father eventually died. I was like out of pocket for quite a while. For Eileen, and other people, that presented some challenges because the sort of regularity didn't work. But an organization that is made up of a larger number of not quite so voluminous pilots, I think will be more resilient. So I'm a little concerned that you see a number like, several hundred flights and think, oh my God, I could never possibly do that. I'm not significant. I think that's not true at all. And I think whatever contribution you can make, as long as you're in the service of the people that we're trying to fly, I think it will have, and collectively, I think it will have a really big impact.
Yeah, that's a good point. And remember, every mission counts. Every single flight counts. There's we used to have a board member many, many years ago who, his sort of theory was that if we could get every Angel Flight pilot who flew in any given year to fly just one more mission, that we wouldn't have these missions that cancel. And it's something some people aren't aware of, that we do have missions that cancel because we can't find a pilot. And we always hate to turn somebody down for that reason. So if you think, oh, I can't be Chris, or if you see some of the things in the newsletter where somebody's flying 80, 90 missions a year, I don't want to say we're not looking for that, because that certainly is helpful. But, one mission a year, 2 missions a year, 5 missions a year, all of it makes a difference.
Yep.
Okay, Chris, just a quick question for you. So I'm preparing for my first flight.
Great.
In a couple of weeks. Super exciting.
Good.
That's wonderful.
If you had to go back to your first flight, what was the, I don't know, what are best practices, the 5 things you wanted to have on the plane you didn't have, the 2 things you wanted to say you didn't say? What are the kind of maybe the, I don't know, a couple best practices you would have for a first timer?
So first off, you're going to do great. So don't sweat it. People particularly resilient. I would check. Do you know if the person you're flying with has flown before?
It said on the site that it's not the first flight, so
great. There you go.
They did, yeah.
And then I happen to have my airplane. Like I said, there's a lot of things I like about my airplane. A few things I don't. One is that you have to get up on the wing from the front. So I actually have a pretty sophisticated ladder. I don't know what do you fly?
Cirrus.
Okay, so you have similar kind of problems.
Yeah,
not quite as bad. I would invest. It's worth investing in a high quality step ladder. That is appropriate for. I mean, your airplane almost certainly can carry more load than mine. So, but whatever the space is. So mine, I don't actually. The one I have is not available anymore. I got it. I actually originally got it so I could fly with my dad. It's one of those ladders that has little cup feet that when you step on it, it goes down and like on the ground. Eileen really likes it. So,
I love it.
Yeah, but sadly, it's not available. You can get them now, but not foldable. Mine is foldable. So, but that otherwise, getting up on the front of a diamond wing is kind of a challenge. So that would be one thing. You just think a little bit about that. The other thing I would think about is what did I forget? I don't know. I mean, it's just communicate and make sure you're both on the same page. Keep them posted. I would plan. One of my other goals, and Eileen can testify this is not always successful, is to be there before your passenger. That's one of my goals, is to make it so that I'm waiting, they're not waiting. And if you can do that, that's great. I think that's helpful. Partly because that way when something goes wrong, then you're not like in the danger zone in terms of pressing it. You're not cutting corners. It makes you more relaxed, more likely to be more welcoming, that kind of thing. So I plan on being early. I don't know.
Tom Dyer has a question, which I think is a little bit similar, but to Avi's. But Tom, go ahead. I can just read it here.
Oh, I don't see it. What is the most important part of the passenger briefing that you have done? I would say the one that gets the best reviews, I think, is setting expectations for what the flight is likely to be like. If it's going to be a rock and roll, first off, if it's pretty bad turbulence, Eileen actually sleeps through anything. So I actually don't worry about turbulence for her. I usually am not up for whatever turbulence she's fine with. But I certainly would not fly with somebody that I know where when you look at the turbulence chart, it's an interesting color of orange. I would basically not fly because I think you're likely to see somebody's lunch. It's going to be an awful experience and they will never ever want to fly again, kind of thing. So that's my personal perspective. But I would sort of set expectations for what kind of weather you can expect, and ask them if there's anything special they need. Um, those are the most important parts of the whole thing. There's the routine safety stuff, and I mean, which is important. Don't get me wrong, it's important, but the thing that seems to lower anxiety the most is when you can explain what they are going to expect, so that when it is bumpy at 1,500 feet, but they know or they've heard that you've told them that by the time you get to 3,000 or 4,000 feet, it's going to smooth out. That makes the 1,500 feet jitters a lot more tolerable. So I'd say that's been the most successful part of calming people's nerves.
And then to go back just for a second to what Chris was saying about the ladder, just a very simple step stool. I know at one point Angel Flight gifted me with one, which I'm taking very good care of, and I will return. And that is so helpful. I wouldn't be able to get on the plane, or it would be very, very difficult for me to do that. And I think as one gets into one's golden years, it makes it that much easier.
Yeah.
So having one is a real plus.
Yeah. Most airplanes, a normal small step ladder works. My airplane, you really need something bigger.
Yes.
Yep. The stool Eileen is referring to is the one that many of you have seen. Some of them you might even carry them in your own airplane. They're the little foldable ones. You can get them on Amazon for like $14. They're heavy duty plastic or rubber or some such material. They're very lightweight. Tom, can we get to your question now? Sorry.
Okay, so I see them in the chat, so I'm just gonna answer some of them. So Todd asked a question that for first flight, how do I get a mission assistant? I'll let somebody else speak. My experience is sort of up to you to find a mission assistant if you want to do that. In my airplane, they better be real light. So I personally don't need mission assistance. That's not been necessary for me. But Eric asks about call sign. Some airplanes you're able to, if you can make the call sign change, and some airplanes allow you to do it. Some planes don't. Mine does. I was just actually explaining to I had a couple of Asia flights yesterday, and I was explaining to them that it's not often, but surprisingly often. Like I've had air traffic control stiff arm a commercial jetliner to get me out first. That I assure you would not have happened if it was not an Asia flight. That would not have happened. And they're a lot more amenable to, no, I'm not descending at 1,500 feet per minute. Sorry, that's not happening. Just not unable kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, in general, I've found there are operational advantages. I mean, they'll essentially cut you to the head of the line. Not always, but it happens. And you're almost always going to get air traffic controllers on their best behavior. Sometimes they can be kind of snarky in a bad mood. That doesn't happen on Angel flights. It just doesn't. So yeah, I would, if you can change it, first you have to register for a real number that's unique to you. But if you can do that, I would absolutely do it. Sadly, a lot of instrumentation, it doesn't, you can't do it.
And you do need to, Eric Geisler, you do need to change it back when you're not
Yes.
flying a mission. So you have to, on the deadhead leg, you do need to change it back. And just be aware, folks, we do get a monthly report from the FAA if your call sign is mismatched. So if you're using the Angel Flight call sign and have not changed your ADSB app, we're going to know about it. And David will be reaching out to you, let you know.
Cool.
So Edward Kern has a question about airplane noise and small children.
Yeah, so I have they're inexpensive. I invested in some kid size earmuffs, and hope that mom is sitting next to them so that they can keep them on. That's kind of the only way that's going to work. Most of the children that not all, but they have to be pretty little before a normal headset wouldn't fit them at all. But for the really little kids, 2 or 3 years old, then we go with the little mini. I mean, they're very effective. They're like 35 dB noise reduction, but they're designed for kids. So that's worked pretty well for me.
Isabella, you have a question for us?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Izzy. I'm a college student at Santa Clara University. I'm actually pre-med, and I signed up to be a mission assistant. I have
You
my
look
license.
light.
I'm 130 pounds. I have my license and instrument rating, but don't have the hour requirements, but really like being in the sky and volunteering.
Great.
I was wondering if you guys have any recommendations while I wait for mission assistant opportunities, or if you recommend like I introduce myself to some pilots to see if they need any help. Yeah, want to see what you guys think.
Well, Chris is right there, and I believe you're not too far apart. Am I right, Chris?
Where? Yeah. So you're living on campus?
I'm right off camp, like a 5-minute walk from Santa Clara. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you got me email. Send me an email if we can work it out.
Okay.
We'll do it. That's fine.
Okay.
I mean Santa Clara. First off, I went to Santa Clara, so that's fine.
Oh, no way. Cool.
Yeah. Back long before you were born. So, but it's super close. As you know, it's super. I mean, my airplane is hangared at the corner of Coleman and Newhall. You know where PayPal
Oh my
Stadium
God.
is?
Yeah.
You could probably walk there. You could probably just walk there. So,
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I'll shoot you an email. Thank you.
okay, great. And then I'm going to put that back on AFW though. So here you go. So when somebody calls and says, "Hey, I need a mission assistant," I don't want to hear anymore. "Oh, we don't know anybody."
Izzy, it is.
There we go.
David, that's on you to remember that one there. So, look, I've seen the mission assistant question come up in the questions here as well in the chat. So it is, we know, it is a question that everybody has. Angel Flight West does not yet have it down. A good system for either those of you like Izzy who want to be a mission assistant, or those pilots who would like Todd, who was thinking about taking a mission assistant. It's not a great process. And we know that it is on our list of stuff to do and talk about, and it's sort of always top of mind for us. So if you want to fly along, if we do have events, summertime is rolling around. So Izzy, there will be a gathering in June up at my goodness, the airport has escaped me. Byron, thank you. Thank you. At the Byron Airport, if it's something, if Chris is going along, or we can find another pilot for you to go along, that's a great chance to introduce yourself to people, let them know, Bay Area airports there that you might be interested in going along. So we know it's an issue. Stuart, you have your hand up.
Okay. All right. Well, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yes.
Right. I just had two comments. One, great missions assistant. Based on many years, I have found that if you have a mission assistant who is experienced with angel flight, they can be a tremendous advantage because they can help prep the passenger while you pre-flight. They can answer questions. If you get busy, they can reassure the patient. And unless you have a passenger who's well experienced, it may not matter that much. But if you have someone who's fairly new traveling as a patient and a good mission assistant, they can take a tremendous load off the pilot. That's number one. Number two, if you have a fairly long flight come up, please remind your patients not to drink a lot of water or to the restroom first. Otherwise, bad things happen.
Yeah, the toilet in my airplane is not very good. I have had to land once.
It happens every now and then. Do we have any other questions?
Okay, so Edward, so the short version is when you file using your normal tail number, but there's a field, at least I don't use ForeFlight, I use flightplan.com and Garmin Pilot, which I also don't use for filing. I got used to flightplan.com, so that's what I do. Anyway, there's a call sign field. You just put in the NGF number in the call sign.
Anybody else?
Ace here, Sherry. Just a couple other comments that, like, I rent a plane and I'm not able to program in an Angel Flight call sign.
Right.
But if you ever see a delay coming up, you can just tell ATC, hey, I am an Angel Flight.
Yes, that also helps.
Or use the word compassion flight, and that's gotten me priority when it looks like.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have said that. That's probably the second best thing.
And another good resource when you're starting out is your wing leader. If you don't know who that is, ask the schedulers, and they can connect you with him or her, and you can get their phone number or email. And it's a great idea, I think, before you fly your first mission, just to give them a call or a text and tell them where you're going, and it's a good chance that they've been there. I'm happen to be a wing leader in Hawaii. I've got maps for every place to park at every airport, the numbers for all the FBOs that we use. I can also hook people up, and the new pilot comes along. Often I can find a flight where they can go be a mission commander.
Yeah.
And coordinate with them, between them and the pilot, to get them a flight under their belt, or maybe find somebody that's willing to go along with them on their first flight.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because that's why I included email. So if I don't know anything about Hawaii, flying in Hawaii, well, other than commercial. So, but in the Bay Area, if it's a Bay Area gig, feel free to ping me. I've flown all over the state.
While we're on the subject of thanking volunteers, Ace is indeed our Hawaii wing leader, and an amazing one at that. But additionally, last year, Ace flew, don't have it in front of me, Ace, but I believe it was 91 missions. So in 2020.
And he has a life too. Isn't that amazing?
That is my life.
Doesn't include Maui relief flights. If you include the Maui relief flights, it's over 100.
I also put my phone number in the chats for all the Cirrus pilots. I've got a good link for you to buy a $40 step ladder that works great with the Cirrus.
Great. That's great.
And it is helpful to have that ladder. I mean, we did, like for Eileen mentioned, we bought the step stool for her to carry around. But, if she's not flying to and from with the same pilot, which generally people are not, that means she has to drag that with her when she goes to her treatment facility. And while they're relatively lightweight, it's not ideal.
So this came, actually, I should have said this earlier. So in terms, I think it's Avi when you were asking your question. So that would be another thing that I would make sure you communicate or talk about, is make sure they understand, because getting on your airplane is not the same as the ramp into a Southwest 737. So and the whole environment is different. So you want to make sure that that both of you understand the mechanics of how that's going to happen, how that's going to work. Not to scare them, just let them know this is what this is like. And anything, how do you feel? Can you climb up a step if it's up, up past your knee? Is that going to work or not? And do you have any mobility issues or whatever? So I also would definitely double check. In my case, I triple check the weight and balance.
Yeah. Is that something that's verified before a passenger is vetted? Meaning, can they climb into a plane like a Cirrus or a Dyna?
So the answer is yes. We have a discussion with the passengers the first time that we talk to them about flying in a small airplane. They all vary, but we usually use a high wing because those tend to be the more difficult to get into. We explain that it can be a wing that they have to step up onto that can be 16 to 20 inches off the ground. And they kind of have to pull themselves up. Once they're on that wing, they have to lower themselves frequently down into the back seat of an airplane. We do have a little boarding video that we send for some people if they're not sure about their own mobility issues. It's a little 3-minute video, actually has Josh Olson, our own executive director there, pretending to be a passenger, giving a very cool thumbs up sign at the as he pretends to take off. So we do vet people. I would be lying if I don't say sometimes someone will slip through and they tell us they can, and they get to the airport and they're difficult to get in the airplane. But then we just, anything like that ever comes up, or somebody weighs more than they told us they did, you should always come back to the staff and let us know, and then we'll make sure that it gets resolved before a future mission.
And this has come up. I think this is in the training now. I think it is, but it's important, even if you can handle that, even if you're flying a TBM and they show up and the numbers are like materially different than what was supposed to be there, it's important that you flag that, because the return leg might be my airplane. And then now we've got a problem. So just because you can handle it doesn't mean it's not a problem. So, I mean, that's fine. You go ahead and do that, but you need to make sure that Angel Flight knows what the story is so we can get the wheels in motion so that the entire trip will be able to be covered.
This is David Volkman talking. Joseph has a chat question that says, anyone in the Reno Tahoe area that has flown missions that would entertain questions? And I think we qualify for that. Teresa and I have done many Angel flights out of Reno Tahoe. Joseph, what's your question?
Oh, it was more or less talking about mount wave issues and some of the more ideal conditions, but I'm happy to do that offline and over chat or phone.
I'll put my telephone number into the chat.
Great.
Ace here again. Another hint is when I fly for a passenger for the first time, I either email or text them. I send them a picture of the airplane sitting on the ground with the doors open so they can see what it's going to look like to get in and out.
That's a good idea.
That is a good idea. Stuart has their hand open.
Yeah, one other comment, Sherry. I have found in a few times over the years, you get to a destination and the patients or passengers' ride or transportation is non-existent. And especially going to smaller towns, it's best to confirm with the passenger that they do in fact have someone picking them up when you land, because otherwise you can be in a real pickle when you land and there's nobody there to receive the passenger and no transportation for them.
Yeah, we do have most cases now, we have ground transportation arranged for them, either via Lyft or Uber or an Earth Angel on the institution side of things. So when you arrive at, say, the Bay Area to take somebody, we do not at their homes. And Stuart, that can happen. So it's a good thing for you to confirm with your passenger. All right.
Great.
Well, Chris, thank you so much. You did a great job. Appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
And
go Tiffany, part of Team Tiff.
Yeah, exactly. Again, May 28th at 12:30 is the next town hall, and just what we were talking about right now about getting the weight and the mobility issues, we'll be talking about that in more depth at that May 28th meeting. So hope we can see you all there. And thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening. We know your time is valuable and we appreciate every moment that you give to us. So
thank you.
Yeah,
have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Staff, if you can hang back, please.